Welcome to the Casual Author Podcast. I'm Dan, sci-fi and fantasy author. Like you, I've got a lot on my plate. What with many children, a full-time job, a homestead, and loads of other responsibilities. I'm here to bring you inspiration, positivity, and community around having a busy life and still wanting to chase that author dream, even if you have to take a casual approach. For more information about the podcast, me, or my books, head to thecasualauthor.com. Let's get started. Hey there, it's Dan Kenner with episode number 129 of the podcast. Today is Monday, July 29th, and today we're talking to Sebastian about getting into the flow of writing. We talk about where he gains his inspiration, how he goes about writing his books, and how that inspiration has led to his stories. So I think you'll really enjoy that part of the conversation. As you know, last week there was no episode. I did warn you that at some point our baby would be born, and last week he was. So things got a little bit chaotic. There's a lot of shuffling, a lot of just chaos, not a lot of sleep. So it was easier to not have an episode. He was actually born last Monday. We went to a doctor's appointment or midwife appointment, and the midwife was checking her and just said the hospital that she had the baby in, my wife, was about 30 minutes away. And the midwife just said, based on where you are currently, I would not recommend leaving the area. So she knew it was coming. And that night, last Monday night, they broke my wife's water and the baby was born an hour later. So it's kind of wild, happened very, very fast. But he's here. He's great. He's now a week old. And yeah, it's been fun settling into having 7 children. The kids love him. We were worried that our 6th child would be jealous of him, but she seems to love him as well. She likes to hold him. I think at first she thought he was just fake because she has a lot of baby dolls that she'll carry around and kiss and whatnot. So I think she was a little bit taken aback that this was a real baby. But as you know, babies wake up like 3 times a night, so we're pretty tired. But that's okay. It's just part of adjusting to having a new baby. It's nothing new, and we'll get into it. That being said, I did start paternity leave, so I am off work for the next 3 more weeks. So I get 4 weeks of paternity leave. Very grateful for that. It just means that, my wife is resting, so I'm all hands and on deck for the kids, for the other 6 kids, while she takes care of the baby and feeds him. So it's been fun. Just taking the kids out and doing homeschooling and doing whatever I can to help my wife keep her feet up. And yeah, so that being said, I haven't done a lot of authoring. I try to get about an hour a day if I'm lucky. It doesn't always happen, but moving forward with Dragon Blooded. So I'm very close to finishing the final edits, my final edits, and I'm pretty happy. I'm being a little bit more critical with the story. There are some not really holes in the story. It's pretty well put together, but there's some things that I need to add to the second book to kind of make it more rounded and connected to the first one. So it's probably good that I'm actually going back, reading the first one, editing the first one before I continue the third one, because I think there's things that I need to put in to Dwarf Blooded to make sure that it's all cohesive and everything. But once I'm done with that, then it will be diving back into the Dwarf Blooded. I'd love to finish that book. And then the Dragon Blooded manuscript will be prepared to pass over to my copy editor at the beginning of August, which is just about a week away. After that, she said it'll take about a month to get that done, and then we'll be sending it out to ARC readers. So if you're interested in reading Dragon Blooded as an advanced reader, just email me, dan@thecasualauthor.com or dan@dankenner.com. I would love to have you read it. So just a heads up for you, it is kind of like a Percy Jackson combined with the Lorien Legacies, the I Am Number 4 books. Best way to describe it's a portal fantasy. So I'm really enjoying it, and I hope you do as well. My son loved it. I think he's already read it twice, and it's not even out yet, but he'll read pretty much anything. He loves every book. So other than that, I'm messing around with like chapter heading images with AI. It's kind of interesting. I don't know if I'll actually do it, but it's just kind of fun to play around with those images and see if there's anything worth putting into there. I've also saved myself some time by, I talk a little bit about this in one of my episodes coming up in a couple of weeks, but I've been using AI to create short snippets of the podcast. One thing I recognize is I want to get more audience. I want to get my podcast out to more people, but I don't have a lot of time to cut samples of the audio and video and push it out to social media. So I've actually started leveraging AI to help me with that. And is it perfect? No, definitely not. But being able to upload the 45-minute, 55-minute episodes and it automatically cuts 25 to 30, 1 to 2 minutes videos, formats them, and I can even schedule them. So, not the most ideal because they're not super pretty. But hey, if someone's looking for a podcast, I can at least use AI to cut a bunch of audio, transcribe them automatically, and that adds subtitles. It's pretty handy. So it's one of those things where I just needed to save time. I didn't have a lot of time. Before I was putting one video out per week for my episodes to social media. Now I can do one every day because that does most of the work for me. Hopefully over time it'll learn the more interesting parts of the episodes, but we'll see. I'm going to take advantage of what I can to make my job a little bit easier given the circumstances. But I did this little flip flop. Normally, I start with homestead news, but in this case, in author news, we already covered those things. So there you go. Before we get into the homestead stuff, I definitely would love to hear where you're listening to this. Do you want to comment or send me a message saying where you're listening? Send pictures. I'd love to learn more about what people do while they listen to the podcast. It's great to have a conversation with you. And of course, do you have any tips or ideas of more things you'd like to hear? Definitely send them over. Would love to talk to you. Or if you want more direct access to communication with me, you can subscribe to the Casual Authors Patreon. So I have a Patreon for just, a couple of coffees a month or one coffee a month, if that's something you do. I'm not a coffee drinker, but I know some people are. If you'd love to support the show, just head over to patreon.com/thecasualauthor. I will be putting out another Q&A session next week. I'll be answering common questions. If you have questions you'd like me to answer as a part of that Q&A, just send them over to me, either through the Patreon or email me at dan@thecasualauthor.com, and I'll go into more in-depth detail answering those questions. Would love to have more time to talk about those things on this podcast, but I want to keep it short for you so that it's, bite-sized content so that you can enjoy that. But instead of in terms of homestead news, not a lot has changed other than we are less than a month away for our cow Ginger having her baby. We're not ready at all. We have to build a stanchion. So what that is essentially it's a stand that she can walk onto that raises her up a little bit and it makes it easier for us to milk her. That's not built yet. We also have to build a pen for the baby, which we haven't done yet either. And then we have to learn about how to potentially assist a cow have a baby. Most of the time, you don't have to. In fact, her other 3 pregnancies, the previous owner said she didn't need any assistance. She had the baby, licked him off, cleaned him off, and they were fine. But, you just need to be prepared just in case things go sideways. Surely it can't be that different from goats having babies. And I've assisted with, a number of goat births. But still, just want to be prepared for that just to make sure. And then we have all the bottles for the calf to feed him. We're gonna bottle feed the calf or her. Guess what? It could be her. We don't know. And then yeah, we have the milking pails and everything. So we got a 2-gallon pail, which is, scale is much bigger than we have for our goats. They're giving us like a quart or two a day. The pot we use for that is so small. This cow could potentially give us up to 7 gallons a day. Do we know what we're going to do with that 7 gallons a day? Not quite, but we'll figure it out, and we'll have to figure it out really quick because it's coming up. Still, once we get all those things settled, then we'll be bottle feeding the calf. I'll go into more detail into why later at a later time, but she's been crazy. We've been taking her out into our field. It's very nice to finally be using the 5 acres that we've had for 3 years for something productive. Started watering it. It's growing. The grass is looking relatively healthy. It could be healthier, but it's just been dead for the past few years or more. I mean, I don't know if the previous owners ever watered it, but Ginger likes it. She goes out every day. We to bring her in at night. She could sleep out there, but our goats are kind of babies. Whenever we take her, they're friends now. So every time we take her out, they cry. It's just like, look, guys, she's gonna be back later tonight. But they just whine and cry for a little while. They get over it eventually. But we'd like to bring the goats out there. The problem is, contrary to popular belief, goats don't actually eat everything. At least our goats don't. They're very picky. If something falls on the ground, the goats won't eat it. It's ridiculous. Or no, they don't love grass. They prefer weeds. They're foragers. They'll go between the grass to find the weeds and the flowers and the other stuff that's not grass. Cow will eat the grass. There's not a lot of weeds out there right now, which is a good thing. So that's why we're not putting the goats out there. Also, the electric line that we have, the goats are a little too short. They can just go right under it. So they're safe to free range technically, but there's also some openings in the fence, and the last thing we need is a goat wandering away and never coming back. So once we figure that solution, maybe they can go out with the cow. For now, they're stuck at home. We did finally sell the final three babies, so we are baby goatless. That's what you want to call it. It's well, we appreciate having the goats, the baby goats. They're cute and they're fun, but they're almost full size. They've grown up quite a bit in the past 6 months. It's just hard to sell them, and they consume a lot more food, and they're not really doing much for us. So it was great to find them new homes. They all seem to be happy. I know one person came by potentially to eat them, but he didn't like them because they weren't big enough, which is fine. Doesn't offend me. Someone took them for pets. So, yeah, they hopefully they're going to be happy where they're going, their new rural home. Our meat chickens just shipped. So in the next week, I think actually a few days, really, we'll be getting 27 or 30, I'm trying to recall, meat chickens, there's baby chicks. Those will grow out for the next 6 to 8 weeks, and then we will butcher 8 weeks from now, which is wild to think about. That's so fast, but they get pretty plump and chunky. So when I put the video out on Patreon about our homestead and have some videos, we'll be able to show you not the butchering process. I don't think anybody wants to see that, but we can at least show you the management of the chickens and show you the growth trajectory because it's pretty crazy how they can go from tiny chick to really fat, chunky chicken so quick. Um, I feel like that was a lot of updates. It just went really fast. There's probably more. Our homestead seems to be flourishing and doing very well. I'm going to take a pause though, because I can save some of the things that are going on for next week for the episode then. So, of course, if you have any questions or commentary, please let me know wherever you're listening. I'd love to see comments. But we'll go ahead and shift over to the interview portion with Sebastian. Hey, Sebastian, how are you doing today?
I'm fine. How are you?
Doing very, very well. I'm really looking forward to hearing more about you and your author journey, asking you how you got to where you are. So let's start with that. How long have you been writing and publishing books?
Well, I've been writing all my life, but seriously, writing to publish um, about 15 years.
Okay, very, very good. So how many books to date have you written and published?
I've published, there's three books that are out now, and
Okay.
there's one on their way. There's just a couple, there's one that I finished writing, but I don't know what I'm going to do with it. And
Hmm.
there's another book I'm working on.
Yeah, I understand the have a book and don't know what to do with it thing. I've been there. That's a
Okay.
challenging piece. So what got you into writing? Why did you start writing?
Well, I it's always because I thought I had something to say, but
Okay.
really, what I like is storytelling. Just making up stories and telling them. I've done that all my life, and many times it's been verbal if I can find anybody to listen.
Mm,
But when I started writing seriously about 15 years ago, I was mostly writing short stories, and
okay.
I wrote, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 short stories in a space of 3 or 4 years. But my first book that I published was in 2018, I believe. And then the book that I wrote that was published by Go to Publish was finished, I believe, in 20, around 21, something like that. And and wrote another book which I published last year called Trippy Hippie,
Hmm.
and and I have one coming out called 100 Years of Cilantro. It's a memoir, and it's more a novella than a full length book. And I'm working on one about gangs in the 1950s called Road to Hell, and that's about the extent of it now.
Wow, I mean that's impressive. There's a lot of people who can't even dream of writing one book, and here you've written a bunch in short
Well,
stories. So,
I like to tell stories.
I mean, why not write it down? I used to tell lots of stories to my kids too, and they did say the same thing to me. Well, you should write these down, right?
Yes,
Otherwise, they're just gone.
because that's the way more people get to read what you write.
Yep, indeed. And I have a bad memory, so I forget them as soon as I say them. So
It's like the this
part of it.
100 years of cilantro that's coming out this summer uh, was based on a trip I took through Mexico um, 30, 40 years ago. And when I when I told a friend about it, about the trip, he said, "Write that down." So I did. I mean, not to the extent that it's written now, but I wrote the details because after 40 years, it's hard to remember
Hmm.
details. But I had my notes, and it was made it much easier for me to write that story.
So yeah, I think that's out of curiosity. So do all the books that you write, are they all fiction based on reality, based on your life, except for the memoir, of course, that's reality. But
No, no, none of them are really. Uh, I mean, I've drawn from stuff in my life, just from the knowledge that you gain by living,
right.
but not really. None of them are based on myself or people I knew.
Okay, interesting.
Only 100 years of cilantro.
Okay, very good. Which is the memoir. Is that
Right,
correct?
right.
Very cool. So what I want to talk a little bit about Little Green Monster because is that your most recently published book then?
Well, not the most recent. I published Trippy Hippie last year, but Little Green Monster I wrote about 4 years ago, something like that.
Yeah,
It's
okay. So tell us a little bit about the book. What's it about and
it's about a man who um, rejects somebody, the advances of another man. He rejects those advances, and that that man exacts revenge upon him by uh, hiding marijuana in his car so that when he drives through Mexico and gets stopped, they find the pot, and he ends up going to prison. And then the story sort of takes off from there because he has to some one a man a friend helps him out by paying a bunch of money, and then he's got to do a favor for somebody else to repay him, and he ends up in Texas, and goes through a bunch of adventures and meets a lot of different people. And finally, the story ends up in Yosemite
hmm.
at the top of a waterfall. And I don't want to reveal the ending.
Yeah, say don't give too much information. That's perfect. So with the inspiration for this book, where do you get your inspiration?
For that book, I'm trying to think.
It just came
I
to you.
I don't remember where I got the idea. It's a love story as well,
Hmm.
um, and I really can't remember what inspired me to write that book, except that the character who hides the pot in Ed's car um, it's based on someone that I knew, but I don't believe that he ever pulled a stunt like that. It's just that the character was based on someone I knew.
Yeah, that's fair. Does this person know that this character? Oh, okay, I was just
He's
curious.
not he's not alive anymore, so
Oh, okay.
it doesn't matter.
Fair
But
enough.
it would be something I could see him doing because he was a vengeful sort of person.
I see.
So he wouldn't take rejection well.
Fascinating. No, I think that's really cool, and it's totally fine that you don't necessarily recall where you got the inspiration from. I can't always remember either, but some people have these very poignant memories or stories that go with stories, and I don't always. I just thought I'd ask if maybe you did. So,
Mm. I it just came to me.
yeah, I think
As,
that's great.
as is most of the stuff I write,
Hmm.
is not really based on anything that happened to me, with the exception of cilantro,
Right.
which was is I really try to stay true to the facts in that one,
Hmm.
and it was quite an adventure, quite a, quite an exciting trip. It wasn't. It was kind of miserable at the time, but exciting in retrospect.
Hmm. Wow. Yeah, I have those in my life as well, so I understand how that is. But so with your other books, are all of your books related to each other for the characters, or are they all separate stories in different places?
They're all separate. They're I have no trilogy. There's no trilogy out
No
there.
trilogy. But yeah, I think that's great. Standalone books are very important, and they provide really good opportunity to get to know characters in their whole, and a complete story, which is very, very cool. So Trippy Hippie, talk a little bit about that because that's
Well,
a title that's fascinating, first off.
that that all takes place in San Francisco.
Okay.
Most of it takes place in San Francisco, um, during the famous Summer of Love,
Hmm.
where and it's a group of people, a group of hippies, and the main characters uh, are two boys who are in love, and they go to Mexico as part of their adventures together, and it's more about their relationship. And then one of them gets killed, and the other one continues to he goes to his funeral in Oregon, and he meets somebody, and they it continues. He has another relationship, and um, he gets together. His name is Arnie, but they call him Gator, and Gator uh, is associated with the people that he lives with in this what they call an ashram, and Gator and Wabash form a band, and Wabash is a musician, and they form a band, and then they're quite successful, and then also in the background is the Vietnam War, and they're very anti-war, and Wabash gets involved in something that uh, is has well, it's disaster. It's
Mm.
disastrous. He has to leave the country, and which is toward the end of the book. So that's about all I want to say about that. Is that I think,
Stop there. No spoilers.
yeah, I think it's pretty good. I like that book. And I wish lots of people would buy it.
Well, and hopefully they do as they learn more about you and the books you're writing. What was your favorite part about writing these stories? Do you have a favorite part of them?
Well, I guess it's what happens when I write is that I develop some characters, and then I write from a sort of vague outline in my mind
Hmm.
of where I want the story to go, but it's really the characters and their interactions that really create the story.
Hmm.
So I'm sort of led along by the characters, and where what's the logical things that come out, or the results that come out of their interactions. And I really enjoy doing that. I like to see where it will take me, because sometimes uh, I don't have a real clear idea in mind of where I want the story to go. Sometimes I just have to figure it out from what the characters say and do.
Yeah, I'm totally the same way. That's actually how I write my books, so I can understand exactly how that is. Have you ever been surprised by where the story goes?
Yeah, sometimes a little bit, you know, wait a minute. I wasn't going there. What are we doing over here? You know,
Yep.
but sometimes it's more interesting that way.
Yeah. Agreed.
I try to get it back on track. I'm the one I'm working on currently. I did some writing last night, and I kept thinking about it after I was finished. I said, why am I doing? Why am I going there? That's not where I want them to go. It's not what I want to happen. So I have to go back and figure that out.
So what does that look like when you do have to go back? Do you end up just removing all the pieces back to where you kind of went off the wall, or do you rewrite it, just adjust
I
it?
I just keep hitting that delete button
Okay.
until or the backspace button. I think it's the backspace button.
It's yeah, well, yes, the thing's backspace, but
Until I get back to the part where I'm satisfied with what I wrote. And then we go back in the direction it should be going instead of what
yeah.
I, I, I do a lot of rewriting. What I try to do when I write is to get the story down.
Mm-hmm.
Then on my second draft, I work on the writing itself,
Mm.
fleshing out the certain passages or certain parts of the story that I think need elaborating. But I do like to work on the writing and make the writing as good as I can get it. And I usually do that on the second, maybe. And then I don't usually write a third draft, but I might take parts of the second draft and rewrite them.
Yeah. I'm impressed with your ability to hit that backspace or delete key because there's a lot of authors that want to hold on to everything they wrote and they have a hard time letting go. You don't
No,
have trouble with that.
not me. No,
No, not you.
I read stuff that I wrote. Oh my God, did I write that? Oh, awful! And I just, it's gone.
Well,
I
that's good.
Yeah,
That's
no,
good. Yeah.
you have to. I think you have to be very disciplined with yourself. You have to be able to look at what you wrote and not think that every word is going to be, you know, something golden or sacred or written
Mm-hmm.
in stone. No, not at all. I think revision or rewriting is the key to to good writing, and that's what I want to do. Is I want to be a good writer, and so the more you write, I think the more opportunity you have to improve your work, to improve your writing. And I think the occasional writers aren't going to be very good writers in the end.
Yeah, it's true actually. So you write every day then? Is that
I would
most
not
days?
every day, but I would say 4 to 5 days a week I write
Okay.
for 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah. I think that's very, very cool. I think the consistency, like you said, the consistency of writing kind of helps keep it fresh. Do you find yourself reading a lot of books as well amidst your writing?
I, I do read all the time.
Okay.
I've always been a big reader, and I don't know if you can see my bookshelves.
I can see some,
I
yes.
can turn around, turn the
Oh yeah,
computer
yeah.
around
That's some big
to
bookshelves.
give you
Yes.
idea. I have books all over my house, and I have to give books away because I have no place for them. You know,
Hmm.
I'm just running out of room. But I'm, I'm always reading. I love to read. Right now, I'm been reading Carson McCullers,
Okay.
and I read The Heart is a Lonely Hunter twice, and Reflections of the Golden Eye, and right now I'm reading Member of the Wedding. I love her. She is a wonderful writer.
That was very cool. Is that your favorite author then? Is that what you're saying? Or you just
Well,
enjoy her?
I don't have really have a favorite. I, but there are 4 or 5 authors that I've read a lot of their works. One of them is Hemingway. I've read almost everything that Hemingway has written, and I'm planning on rereading The Sun Also Rises next. That's
Hmm.
my next book on my list because I've run out of Carson McCullers. Uh, And I like even lighter reading. I like Kate Atkinson a lot. I've read a
Yeah.
lot of her books. Uh, P.D. James I like. And for years I was crazy about Ruth Rendell. She
Okay.
writes crime novels. I read almost everything that she wrote, and she wrote under another name, Barbara Vine, as well. So I read a bunch of those. Uh, I'm a very well read person. I've read a lot of classical writers. I've read a lot of Shakespeare. Um, I haven't read Homer. I have to beg off of Homer.
Well, get on with it. Come on. No, I'm just kidding. I haven't either, transparently. So, but so you said you like to write your books with similar, I mean, obviously not the same style. You're your own person. You have your own style. But do you like kind of that like a similar style of writing for your books as well, or
Mm,
not as much?
I no, I mean I don't want to imitate anybody.
Right, of course.
So I and the temptation is there, of course. If you admire a writer, it's the temptation to sound like that writer is there. But I definitely try to avoid it. I don't want to be imitating anybody. I, I hope I have my own voice, and I
I'm
don't
sure
know
you
that
do.
that it's a particular style. Um, it's I just write the way I think or
Yeah.
talk, and and hope it's that someone will like it.
Oh, I'm sure that people do. And I know you have your style. Everyone has their own voices. I guarantee that you do. I know that a lot of people like to write kind of the more descriptive, longer form type writing as opposed to, short dialogue, full of dialogue type writing. So it really just comes down to preference. And I'm sure the imagery in your books is very well thought through as you write
I,
those
I
out.
I try to balance it out. I like writing dialogue, and I think I'm fairly good at it.
Hmm.
But I don't want my books to just be uh, a play in the form of a novel.
Right.
I like I try to have a good balance between descriptive and narrative and dialogue.
Yeah.
Those are the three things that are important, I think. I mean, that's the three things that you deal with in writing
Mm,
a book is the narrative of the story, which is the narrator telling the story, and the dialogue between the characters and the description that the narrator gives of various places. I try not to be too heavy on the description, but I want to uh, form in the reader's mind the place where the things happen. And I think it can be done pretty succinctly with the use of an adjective here and there. The setting, I think that you can create a setting in a few sentences and not bog the reader down because
hmm
the reader wants to know what's going to happen.
hmm
That's what the reader's curiosity is. What's going to happen? They won't mind you telling them about the place where it's happening, but I feel like you need to be a little bit succinct about it.
Yeah, well, and I think obviously humans, as they're reading, their brain has the ability to fill in some of the details. You don't have to give them all the details,
Right,
right?
you're correct about that, and because I know I do the same thing when I'm reading. I'm
Hmm.
busy filling in. I have a picture in my mind, and the author doesn't have to tell me every single little detail. I got it. I get it. I got it.
And yes, and when they do, you think, can we move on?
Yes,
Right.
please.
So, I'm done hearing about the intricacies of this leaf on this tree. I'd like to
Right,
know
right.
what Johnny's gonna do. Um, But I'm curious to know, are there any parts of the writing process that are challenging for you, or do you find it flows pretty well?
Well, sometimes, I mean, it's, it's a mixed bag because
Sure.
there are some days that I can sit down and it just flows right out.
Hmm.
Other days, I'll find that uh, I'm having trouble. Sometimes it'll take me an hour to write one paragraph. I just
Hmm.
can't get it to move. I can't think of the right words. I can't think of exactly what I'm trying to say. Um, and I have to go back and rethink things. So it just depends. There are just some days, especially when I have these really high energy days. I don't know where they come from, but they just do. And I could sit down and write for a couple of hours and write, 30 pages, and I was really thrilled. But that they don't happen all the time. They only
Hmm.
happen from time to time. And in the meantime, I'm still trying to write every, at least 4 or 5 days a week, trying to and move my story along, whatever story I'm trying to tell. And I don't have that high energy. I have to kind of grind it out.
Hmm.
But I'm fairly disciplined, and I know if I just keep plugging away that I'll get it done. And but I sure love those days when it just flows out. I'm like a river, and
Hmm.
it carries me along in my thoughts and my characters.
Yeah, I love that feeling as well. I wish that I could get it every single day, but
Right. So
doesn't always happen. I
you,
know. Yeah,
you but only us writers understand that.
it's true.
The whole
Well,
process.
I think even more specifically, authors like you and myself who allow the characters to kind of, you know, write the story. Most of the time going into writing, I don't actually know what's going to happen either. And to me, that's fun. That's exciting. But then you
Yeah,
have those other authors who plan everything out
I
very
can't do
specific.
that.
Neither do
Yeah.
I.
I'm kind of like the reader
Hmm.
who's what's going to happen as a writer. I'm
Mm.
the same way,
Yeah.
and I always hope I'll come up with something that's believable.
Well, that is the worry for sure. But it is kind of cool to be reading your own book as if it's the first time because that's what you're doing, right?
Right,
As you're
exactly.
writing, it's just like I'm just reading this, except I'm writing it as I go. So
Right, right.
it's
Yeah.
absolutely fun.
Well, it's
Um,
good to talk to somebody who understands how the process works,
yes.
and so apparently we go through the similar things. Yeah.
Yes. There's a lot of authors like ourselves, although I don't think authors like ourselves are as vocal with our experiences. I mean, Stephen King is also writes in a similar fashion, and he has, talked about that. A lot of authors are very um, insistent that plotting and planning and outlining and is the best, and I just can't do it. It
Yeah,
doesn't
me
work for
neither.
me.
Okay, well, each to
So,
his own, I say.
yeah, you're not alone. You're definitely not alone in that. But so, what plans do you have for moving forward? Just kind of write the stories of your heart as they come to you over the next years, or?
Yeah, I'm not thinking that far ahead. I really want to finish this book, Road to Hell, that I'm writing right now. But I know that that's going to take me the rest of this year
Hmm.
just to get the first draft down. Then the second draft will probably take me another year. So uh, I guess getting a book out every 2 or 3 years is pretty good.
Hmm.
So pub- I've got three published so far, plus uh, the Cilantro, which is at the publisher now and will be out this summer. So that's that's since I started doing this back in 2010, and but I was writing short stories. So I guess 2018 is when I started publishing books, and so that's 6 years, 6 years and 3 books, 4 books. That's not too bad.
No,
That's
that's not bad at all, for sure.
yeah, no, not
Like I
bad. I
said,
feel
most people don't even write one. So you beat that
well,
one by three.
we're not talking about non-writers. How about
True.
writers?
That's fair. Touche. That's very true. I'm curious to know, do you have plans for all those short stories that you've written down? Because that's a lot of opportunity right there. I see.
You know, there's one I wrote that I really think is a good story. It's kind of long. It's close to 8,000 words. I've been looking for a home for it, so whenever I get emails from about publishing, I'm always reading through the different uh, magazines or whatever they are that are looking for fiction, and because that's all I write, and I haven't found a home for it yet. You know, so I haven't found somebody who wants. First of all, they don't usually want something that's that long. They're looking for shorter
Hmm.
pieces,
That's
up
fair.
to 5,000 words. So I sort of wrote it out of the market, so to speak, by
Hmm.
writing such a long story. But I think it's a good story, and I really would love to see it find a home. So I'm always, whenever I get those emails, I'm going through to see what the different magazines are looking for, and so far I haven't found the home for it yet, but I'm going to keep on. I've also thought about putting my short stories together as a single volume, which I know I could do, but I just don't know who would buy it.
Hmm.
Do do people buy books of short stories? If it's a really famous writer, I would say yes. I mean, I would buy a book of. In fact, I have bought a book of Hemingway short stories, and I have it on my coffee table right now that I read a story between other books I'm reading just because I love Hemingway so much. So that, but I don't know if I want to. I don't want to have to spend a lot of money to self-publish a book that I don't have a prayer of selling.
Yeah, that makes sense. Totally makes sense. I think people do buy them. I have never done it, but from what I understand, a lot of people do compilations of their short stories, however many. Maybe it's five short stories, maybe it's 20. I mean, it really depends on you, but it's always an option. You could consider compiling them and seeing if either self-publishing or maybe a publisher. I haven't looked into it, but it seems like that's a lot of opportunity to share those great stories that you've written over the years and put
Well,
them together.
I'm definitely thinking about it. I just haven't got around to it.
Yeah, I get
Um,
that. Lots of
there's,
things to do.
I know the list is endless
Hmm. Definitely is.
because especially because it's writing isn't all I do. I mean, I work for a living,
Hmm.
and because if I were to depend upon my writing, I would starve. But
No.
as a but I have to work, so but I don't consider it a hobby. I really don't. I just feel like I'm a writer, and that's what I do.
Yeah.
And, but selling is it's, it's iffy, really iffy.
I understand that. I'm in the same spot. I get it. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like where writing has become so much a part of your life that it's not a hobby. It's just part of you, part of your
exactly.
existence. And so, yeah, it's not a hobby for me either, but it's also not a job. So
Yeah.
it's right in between both of those.
Maybe I'll be discovered after I'm gone. That's kind of what I imagine it. Just
Perhaps,
because
who
for the
knows?
irony of it.
Anything's possible, right?
Yeah.
So what do you do for work, if you don't mind me asking, during the
I'm a tax preparer and an
nice. Okay.
accountant. So I've been doing that all my life as well.
Wow, very good. I'm always impressed with people with the attention and focus to do that. It's not a
It's
skill that I
hard.
have, so
It's hard, but it's kind of seasonal, you know.
sure. Yeah.
I do most of my work in the spring,
Okay.
and and then the rest of the year I can kind of do things on my schedule, my time.
Yeah. You can write books,
And I write books,
which
yes.
is where
I
you
mean,
are.
I even write during tax season. Maybe not quite as much, but I just I have to write. It's like the dancer that's got to dance. I got to write.
Yeah, I understand that actually. Totally understand that. If
Yeah,
there's ever, a long period of time, a few days, a week where something happens, life gets crazy, and I don't end up writing, I find this internal frustration. And I think back and it's like, oh, that's right. I'm frustrated because I haven't been writing.
yeah, it
It's just,
gnaws at you.
it
It's like,
does.
and there's always many interruptions, and
Hmm.
people don't respect your time. That even though you've said this is my time that I'm going to write, around this time every day. So leave me alone if they don't.
No, no, I have a bunch of kids and
Right, and
yeah,
I'm sure with kids,
boundaries don't
daddy,
exist. Yeah.
daddy, can we do this? Can we do that?
Yes. But maybe I could be less fun. Maybe then they wouldn't want to play with me, but I'm too fun. So
But you love your kids,
I do. I have a blast with
how
them.
can you
So
not be fun? It's fun for
yes,
you too. So,
absolutely.
so,
Absolutely.
so I mean, I admire that you're able to share your time with your family and still sit down and write, get your writing done. So I'm sure you have some ground rules set for that.
Yes, of course,
It's,
for sure.
but
Mainly
you
for
know,
myself
uh,
to be disciplined.
it's but it's a balance that we seek in our lives to have the relationships and the time spent with loved ones and still be able to focus on the things that you want to do for yourself. It's a balancing act,
Hmm.
and it's a delicate one sometimes. But if people love you, then they respect your time and
It's
they
true.
encourage you. Sometimes people are selfish and they don't want they don't want to let you be you, and
Hmm.
that's problematic. But that's not happening to me right now. It may have happened to me at other times in my life, but not now. I've got
That's wonderful.
I'm surrounded by really good people and good friends, and it makes life so much better to have that.
It does. Absolutely. The most important things in life, right?
Right.
Things to
Because
remember.
I mean, some people can go it alone, and I'm not married. I don't have children, but I have friends,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
and that's my family, and I have an active social life. And between my social life and my writing time, I've struck a workable balance, and
Yeah.
I'm happy with it. And I'm productive. As you know. So,
Being productive is an important part of mental health.
absolutely,
That's for
yes,
sure.
absolutely. I want to feel that when I leave the planet, I will have made my mark.
Absolutely. Well, I
And,
mean, you 3 books worth of Mark plus more to come,
more
right?
coming out. There's
So
in the pipeline. They're coming.
they're coming. Very good. Well, we could probably continue this conversation for so much that we could talk about. We are running a little short on time, unfortunately, though. Where can people find more information about you and your books?
Well, um, buy a book, and there's always my bios on the back,
Hmm.
um, and so they can get Little Green Monster from Go to Publish or from Amazon, and the same with Drippy Hippie. My first book, Nobody's Bitch, I don't know if that's available uh, anymore, but it might be. Probably Amazon might have it, but it's now that's been out for 6 years. I don't know what to say about that one. Um, 100 Years of Cilantro will be coming out this summer, and that's available from Atmosphere Press
Nice.
and and from Amazon. It'll be on Amazon. I'm sure Amazon has everything. So,
Amazon does have everything. Yeah, I'll put some links in the show notes so people can find them. I'll make sure to find the requisite Amazon links and put them in for people to find and go to publish because I know you mentioned that for
right.
Little Green Monster. But yeah, this has been an awesome conversation. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Dan. I really enjoyed talking to you.
I definitely enjoyed it as well.
All right. You take care.
I hope you found that interesting and encouraging. Sebastian had a very great perspective, definitely a more slow moving approach to publishing, which is not a bad thing. I think that's very good. A lot of us are in the mindset that we need to go, 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 right, 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 do, do, do. And, it's nice to be able to step back and just enjoy it and take our time creating something. I could tell that's where he was. So next week, we will be talking to Jennifer Carr about scaling your business with AI. So at the beginning of this podcast, I mentioned in a couple of weeks, we'd be talking about AI. I was incorrect. It's actually next week. So Jen has a very wonderful perspective on AI usage, of course, from a moral perspective, a very, responsible usage of AI. And she encouraged me to leverage it to make easier the things that I don't have time to do, like creating short clips of my podcasts. And since that conversation, I've been doing that, and I appreciate it. It's been helpful. In any case, if you'd love to join us next week, I know it's kind of a controversial subject, but you can hear Jen's perspective, and I think it's a very positive and healthy perspective on AI. If of course you have questions or if you'd like to join me on the podcast, just head to thecasualauthor.com, submit the pitch form. I'd love to chat with you. Or of course you can join the Patreon, and I've already mentioned before. Thank you again for listening, and I look forward to talking to you next week.